Welcome to the Seek Outside podcast.
And you think that's bad? You see Ryan on the phone in the office. Seek Outside podcast.
Some people are just wired that way.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Seek Outside podcast. Today is Wednesday, June 18th, and thank you guys for joining us. Owen, how you feeling this morning?
I just woke up just a mere 45 minutes ago, feeling fresh. Ryan surprised me. He said, Owen, let's hop on the podcast while you're the most energetic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thought.
Yeah.
And, I mean, kind of what we talked about. Remember, I told you this, but you said that you didn't listen to me, so did give you fair warning.
Yeah.
Guess
I don't
we're
always
just-
wear this shirt, too, by the way. Ryan just always, he wants me to wear this shirt on the days for podcasts.
Yeah,
He wants
I
me
tell
to-
you, it's a green day.
It's Green Day.
We're-
Yeah.
Wow, look at us. We're
Wow.
just freaking,
Matching.
we're matching.
Yeah.
My-
Maybe you need your hat.
Yeah, I know. I do have that Urside gear hat.
Man, we would have looked like a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah. Glad we had that difference.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for joining today. This is going to be a little bit quicker intro, preamble, whatever you want to call it, prologue. We have 2 interviews coming up today. Number 1 is going to be with Kendrick from the Goat Alliance, and then the second one is going to be with Stuart from Born Outdoors. So they're a couple shorter interviews, throwing them both out there, and so hopefully you guys enjoy it. They're going to be 2 totally different subjects from each other, so
Yeah.
you'll be getting your money's worth on this one. But we want to start by doing the typical DST tarp giveaway.
Now, we did get a heinous amount of comments.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys showed out.
Yeah.
You showed up and showed out for sure.
We do think that maybe we should limit to 10 per person.
Yeah, we're going to put it, because shout out to AJ in the comments. I don't know what you are doing in life, but I did see that we had some comments that were like, I don't know, 5 hours ago. I'm not sure where you're at, but you must have just been. I mean, you're determined, so we'll see. I mean,
I would be amazed if on this round he didn't win.
Yeah, this is like the guy that just buys, like, on a you go to these banquets and there's like a auction for a freaking pair of boots, and some guy spends $500 on raffle tickets for that.
Yeah, buying a rifle. You're just buying a rifle. You're buying it.
Yeah, you're essentially. Except for this is different. You don't have to pay anything. Just time.
Just time.
Lots of time.
I think and I did like your comments. I read through.
Yeah.
Stuart as well. Beard and Gun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
there's
definitely some good ones.
Really
and
good, engaging comments.
Yeah.
Enjoy that.
Love hearing the feedback, and it's kind of almost like you're just listening along. It's like
Maybe that's what they're doing. Like
you're here in the studio,
listening in parts.
Yeah.
And then commenting. That's what it seems like is going on.
Yeah.
But we may have to limit to 10 bigger comments.
Yeah. So that is what we're gonna do. So 10 comments.
Obviously, we can't enforce that, but we ask.
Yeah, well, we can delete the comments. We'll go through next week, and if there's an absurd amount, I mean, you guys know the rules.
Yeah.
But either way, for anybody that doesn't know that might be listening right now, join the YouTube. Go to the YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe. We've actually gotten a lot of subscribers in the last 2 months that we've been doing this.
Yep.
So it's awesome to see. And then, so basically, if you want to be entered to win this DST tarp, we're giving one away until the last episode before before fall hits. So that's September 21st, whatever that last episode falls on. We'll be giving away a DST every episode. You just got to go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, watch the episode, and then comment. And basically, how we do it is we pull up a random number generator, and all the comments on here have a number. Throw it in the random number generator, and that's how we select the winner. Now, I'm kind of thinking that I'm dreading this because there are 176 comments.
Yeah. Well, you just gotta hope it's like 165 or 4.
Yeah.
You know? If not, we're gonna do a little cut. We're not gonna count down on this one if it's middle of the pack.
Yeah, not live because that's gonna take a long time, especially with us.
You're gonna hear Count Dracula.
Yeah, yeah.
1, 2.
Yeah. But I guess, yeah, without further ado, let's get into it here. So, like I said, we had random number generator. We had 176 comments, so I'm going to put that in here. 176. Good luck to you, Senior AJ and Beard and Gun. I think you guys definitely had. Oh, nice. So we had 159. I'm guessing that's AJ because he's been
going hard.
Yeah.
Going hard.
Yeah.
I appreciate the grind.
Yeah. So let's see here. Counting from the bottom. 1, 2, 3. So we're counting to 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. You got it. Yep. AJ, and just so you guys know, we're actually recording this on Thursday, so if you commented after Thursday, then you're out. But it was AJ, with the winning comment being about when taking the trash to our enclosure, I walk in on what I thought was a bear. It all happened so fast. That comment, that's the winner. So you guys can go check it out. But AJ, hit us up on Instagram or Facebook, or just send us an email at podcast@seekoutside, and we'll get you the DST tarp. So congrats on that, man. And we are going to move on to the happy hour here. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Seek Outside Happy Hour. Yes, sir. We are going to be kind of skipping the weekend recap this week just because we got some stuff to do here.
Yes, sir.
Owen's hitting up Crested Butte this weekend.
Ooh.
So I'm sure you're stoked about that, but
yeah.
you guys will get a double dose next time. I'm excited to share some of the fish pictures on the podcast from my last outing. Yeah. It's awesome. But either way, we're going to get into happy hour here. So
do people want to see 8-inch fish?
They want to see this brook trout.
Yeah.
I kind of
blur everything in the background.
Oh yeah. It was funny. I posted a picture on my Instagram just in the story, and I had multiple people because I blurred out the background. You know, because these days, I don't know. It's not like
you got to gatekeep.
Yeah, and it's not like this lake is like super secret or anything like that, but it's more like I don't want a bunch of people going there, right?
Messing up your trout fishing experience.
Yeah. I mean, there's already plenty of places that get blown out, but
yeah,
I had multiple people, and one specific, like he used to be our neighbor, and he was like he messaged me. He was like, I haven't seen somebody blur out a fishing picture in years. That's so lame. I was like, you're just trying to get my spot, bro.
Yeah, you can't be mad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you always just, dude, I know people who know the lake on the watercolor.
Yeah.
Like, you can post a pic and they're like, oh, it's this lake. And you're like, damn.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're good.
I mean, I ain't going to lie. I've definitely done some research from pictures, but also like hunting. There was this one hunting TV show that I was watching one time, and they like showed a close up of the map that you know they were looking at, and it had a creek name on it. And so I spent the next like 30 minutes trying to find that creek in there with the matching topo. So you got to be careful these days. People they'll use all the tools they can to find your spot.
Investigative.
Yeah, investigative spot finding.
Yeah.
All right, so happy hour here. The first topic today is funny. Shout out to Yellowstone Tourons. That's the Instagram page. If you guys go follow that, it's a good.
Like more.
Yeah.
Nice.
But basically, Outside Online had a a message about, just bison attacks. And I thought it was funny because in the first sentence, they sent their journalist out there, and his quote was, when people go to Yellowstone, they get horny for bison. I was like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But they do start acting crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, another person got gored.
Did they die or just get messed up?
No, this one they just got destroyed by the bison, and
Nice.
it's just, to me, like, why? What about a 1,500-pound animal with horns
Makes you
on
want
the
to get
front?
close to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
I don't even like being by a horse
Yeah.
or near it. Scary.
Yeah.
It'll kill you. A moose, dead.
Moose. Yeah.
Buffalo, dead.
There have been a bunch of moose attacks on dogs in Colorado.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's but yeah, I just don't understand the people that, I mean, with iPhones now, you can zoom in as close as you want, and you get a good picture.
Must be Android users.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
yeah, must be Android.
So yeah, we should do a study on that. How many Android users are attacked by bison
Yeah.
versus iPhone users?
Yeah, it's just all flip phone people that are
Yeah.
getting close.
Dude, yeah. I mean, to talk about that, I don't understand. Because when I was in the Smokies,
Mm-hmm.
they have a sign every, felt like 30 feet. These animals, like bears, will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Do not get close. Stay 200 yards away. And as we're riding down this path, and it's just packed, there's a bear, and people are 20 yards,
Yeah,
just looking at it, filming it. I'm like, dude, these things they'll mess you up.
yeah.
Yeah.
People do that with grizzlies in Yellowstone, or
Yeah.
in that area. We were driving down the road one time and going up there, and there's a grizzly on the side of the road, probably 100 yards off the side of the road, and
Yeah.
it was just chilling, feeding, and obviously they're somewhat used to people, but there's always that one guy that's trying to get close, and it just makes you wonder, what is that in your brain? Do those people just not associate animals with danger? Do they have this Disneyfied viewpoint of them where they just think they're all cute and cuddly, or are they?
They just don't have the fight and flight in their brain or something.
Yeah, it must
It's
be.
gotta be even when I see a bear, I get a little tingly. When you're real close to one, hunting.
Yeah.
You're oh shit.
Those people are probably the same people that leave their keys in their car when they go, at a.
Too much trust.
Yeah. It's like
Too much
Austin.
trust. Yeah.
It's like Austin.
Yeah.
He would always park his vehicle and leave the keys in his car. He's probably the same guy that's getting gored by bison up in Yellowstone.
To be fair, the only reason I lock my car is because if it does get stolen, then I can, they have to break a window or something.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
your insurance company covers it.
Yeah.
If they just take it with your keys, insurance ain't going to cover that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
That can be avoided. The last one that we have here is going to be, I enjoyed it because Texas essentially just added another species to the list that you can hunt from helicopters, and that's aoudad sheep. And I thought this was interesting because it's becoming, in the hunting world, they're becoming a much more popular species. I think they're becoming that because, number one, you can hunt them in March and April where there's nothing else to hunt.
Yep.
It's labeled as the poor man's sheep hunt now.
Yep.
But this is kind of the common theme with some of these invasives is towing the line between there's obviously a bunch of ranches down there that now that's a big part of their business model is aoudad, guiding for aoudad. And, there's even some public land draw hunts that you can do down there and in New Mexico. But it's also the aoudad population, I was reading in this Outdoor Life article, expanded from 50 animals that were released in one county in 1957 to 30,000 now.
Really?
Which is insane. Yeah. And it just goes to show if that looks like it's they're interesting because they look like an animal that would be designed for Texas. Just like the look of them.
Like
they're
the West Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're you're able to go chase them with a helicopter nowadays.
Which is why I feel like I could see hog hunting out of the helicopter being, a fun one-time experience. But like for bigger game, I'd rather work for it a little more.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like just because I've always done it, but I don't see necessarily the reward or the fun with just like an easy, it's like, I'm chasing this animal and shooting. Like,
pretty wild. You know what they call hog hunting from a helicopter? Pork chopping.
Pork chopping. Did you make that up?
No, it was in there. It was in there.
Pork chop. I was like, damn, Ryan got clever.
I got clever, dude.
Got clever.
I've been clever.
Been clever. Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. Shorter happy hour today. We got a bunch of stuff to do. I did want to bring something up. I think a new kind of one of the newer segments that we're going to start doing here is hot tip of the, TP tip of the week, which basically anything camping related. If you guys drop it in the comments, we want to start giving some more, some more of the under the radar tips on camping and gear. So if you guys have anything, drop them in the comments below, and I think we're just gonna pick the best one every week. And
so drop your tips.
Yeah. Drop your best tip. It could be, something that has to do with pitching a tent or dealing with condensation or
backpacks or
backpacks. A specific gear item that you like bringing along with you, and anything.
We'll either judge you or we'll not.
Yeah. That's what we'll do. We'll critique it.
Yes. It'll be like the old days of the rate my dump.
Yeah.
Which we do need to bring back.
We do.
That was a good series.
Yeah.
Short-lived, but it was good.
Maybe that's another thing that we could do is like have people list their gear items. Essentially do like a word pack dump.
How about for this one? We do what is your best luxury item that you bring in?
There we go.
Yeah. What is your best luxury item that you bring into the backcountry? It could be, it's something that isn't, like a big pillow. Like everybody does that. If they want. But not right.
Maybe not.
Yeah. But something crazy. Give us something weird.
Give us some good stuff. Yeah.
You bring a fifth of whiskey in.
I mean, some people do.
I have.
I was gonna say some fly-in hunts. Just bring like one of the glass things, a crown, the fifth of crown with the glass.
That's what you hunt with. You throw it at them.
Yeah. Or man, I've always wanted to bring. So there's this company called Old Elk that makes bourbon out of Fort Collins, and they have this accessory pourer, and it's so cool.
Oh,
it's
really?
Basically like it's just like an elk, and then the whiskey pours out of its mouth.
That's sick. There's got to be some kind of, thing there when you're elk hunting.
Yeah.
It's like got to be a spirit the elk is giving to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you give to the elk a bullet.
Yeah.
Or an arrow.
It's a good trade.
Yeah. Terrible trade for the elk.
Yeah.
Good trade for me.
Yeah, you get whiskey and backstraps.
Yeah.
But no, I like that. One luxury item that you were going to bring on your standard trip.
Yeah.
I would say it could be a pillow. Because some people, I never bring a pillow.
Yeah.
But now don't say pillow because we've been talking about it.
Pillow.
We won't pick it.
What is it like? Let's get it started. What's your most ridiculous luxury item?
Most ridiculous luxury item that I've brought on a backpacking trip would probably be, just weight-wise comparatively to some of the other stuff would be the Brewtech like French press. Because those things are heavy.
The big, yeah.
They're heavy.
Those are heavy.
And I usually just do like instant coffee. Yeah. But those Brewtech little mugs, they're pretty cool because you can store the grounds underneath.
Yeah.
And then it's like a travel mug and a French press.
Those are pretty sweet.
But they're like 2 pounds each, so.
Yeah.
Kind of tough. What about you?
I don't know. It's been a while as far as the luxury items that I've taken out. Like I usually go the last few trips have been pretty light, you know. But honestly, back in the day when I drank caffeine, I would bring like a Monster or like a Red Bull, and I feel like that's pretty ridiculous because you could just take instant coffee.
Yeah,
but
or like the Wilderness Athlete packets, caffeine packets.
Exactly, yeah. So I was, bringing in a Monster or two, which that adds up. What are they, 16 ounces?
Yeah.
2 pounds of just energy drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing those, but at least that, like, you're not carrying it out with you.
Yeah. Drink them quick.
Yeah. I will say just one other point on that. Kind of funny because did a backpacking trip. It wasn't like, I wouldn't call it a backpacking trip. We only hiked in a little ways to get a better campsite this last weekend.
Right?
Yeah, like a mile. But I feel like this is always the case with me. Like anytime I do just a one overnighter, a trip like that, my pack base weight is like I'm using like a 6,300. And it's
like 80
filled.
pounds.
Yeah. Because you're like, oh, I'm only going a mile. I could bring, all this extra shit. But so I probably have the heaviest average like overnight backpack.
I would say that. Yeah.
Because you bring like camera gear.
Oh, dude.
Throw in the drone, and then you're like, yeah, well, maybe we'll bring this little fry pan and cook on the stove.
Dude, it doesn't even matter. Actually, you know what? I have another ridiculous item I've brought. It's not backpacking, but moto camping.
Mm-hmm.
I've brought my giant RC car.
That is probably
my 1/10 scale RC car, this big. Just threw it on the moto, camped overnight, and crawled, dude.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah,
but that's a good one though. That's
fun.
I
think I would backpack in with my little RC car.
Yeah,
I think I would.
Yeah,
just do some crawling. You never know where you're gonna end up. Could be the best crawling rock you've ever seen.
Backcountry crawling.
I'm starting a new episode.
It's a new YouTube channel. Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, I think that's it for the first part here. We're gonna get on. Enjoy the podcasts, the interviews with Kendrick from Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance, talking goat conservation, and then and then Stuart from Born Outdoors talking bedrolls, his military experience, and how that applies to gear. So stay tuned. Thank you guys.
Peace.
So in front of me, we got Stuart. Is your last name Bourne? I think I just have you in my phone. All right. That makes sense. Yeah. I probably should have asked that before I gave the introduction, but hey, here we are. I just have you in my phone as Stuart Bourne. You're Born Outdoors. That's how I know you, is Stuart Bourne. So I'm glad it's your last name. But we got Stuart Bourne here, Born Outdoors. They make bedrolls. Introduction there, Stuart. You're the man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it's my last name is Bourne, and even when we named the company, I went back and forth because I didn't really want to name the company after myself. But my friends were like, dude, nobody knows your last name is Bourne. You do. That's it. And so that's what we went with. And it's always I get that response all the time when people realize that my last name is actually Bourne. But yeah, we started this company back in 2017 initially, and just out of the frustration of sleeping well outside, and so we created a bedroll. And just been running with it and enjoying it. So it solves a lot of problems that are out there, and just a little startup, just out there working and grinding it out, enjoying it.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, if you've seen us at any trade shows, a lot of times we'll have their bedrolls up on the cots. That does lead into the kind of the problem with what you guys do, and that is that you make such a comfortable bedroll that that our employees have taken those bedrolls and kind of adopted them for their own personal use. And we got some employees that have some of your bedrolls that, they'd rather, they're going to hold those things with their cold dying hands before they give them up. But they're awesome.
I think what's fun about it, the problem, you just look at sleeping outdoors, right? And it's core to what we do. And it's nobody goes outside to sleep. You're going outside to hunt. You're going outside to mountain bike. You're going outside to do something. And sleeping is just a major part of that activity. And by sleeping well, you just are able to enjoy all those things all the better, right? You've got the energy to get up and do things, and sleep is such a critical factor. And we don't sleep in sleeping bags at home, so why do we do it in the field, right? It's kind of a core question I love to ask, and people just kind of tilt their head like, well, I don't know, why do we do that?
Yeah.
And sleeping bags are great for what they do, like with you're like with Seek Outside's focus of being light and moving and going back and going really deep in the backcountry. You're not taking out bedrolls in that type of environment where you've got a situation where weight and warmth have got to be maximized, right? So what's the maximum warmth I can get with the minimum weight?
Mm-hmm.
And so the sleeping bags are a great solution, and there's great companies that do that. Our approach is when you've got the ability to transport things with animals or vehicles, why are you sleeping in a sleeping bag? Just so what the way we kind of came about this was really, I just had a really bad sleep experience. A cold front came rushing in, and I was in the Escalante area out in Colorado, down about where you guys are, and just froze my butt off. And next morning, I started dropping F-bombs and sketching this thing out. And I made one for myself, and it worked. And it's basically just a bed. So it's got a nice, good quality mattress with a high R value,
Mm-hmm.
bottom sheets, top sheets, and quilts. And you can add quilts to it, and it all just rolls up into a bedroll. And so that's kind of how we kind of came about, getting this thing started was just out of necessity. And then I made a few for myself, and people saw it, and my brothers wanted one, so I had them made. I was using a local contractor here. And then over the years, just keep on taking those next steps up, and people are liking the idea, and next thing you know, you're a small gear company.
Yeah. Well, and I think you brought up a couple good points there. I was reading, there was a study the other day about, sleeping outside and how, it takes you 48 to 72 hours to adjust to a different sleeping area. And it's kind of like an old school biological thing that's just built into you to where, like, if you're in a new spot, you're kind of assessing the situation. Like, there's different lights. You don't know what danger you're in, so you don't sleep as good. And part of that is like being in a different, if you're going from a big old queen size mattress where you can sprawl out to a tiny little mummy sleeping bag, something ultralight where you're not going to be able to sprawl out. That's going to just exacerbate that problem. I think you guys definitely do a great job of solving, because your bedrolls, I mean, there's a few other bedroll companies out there. I mean, it's obviously a pretty established concept, the bedroll, but you guys, I feel like what you guys do different is you incorporate like the highest quality, whether it's a sleeping pad or the quilts, and then also the fabrics that you guys use are lighter weight. It's not canvas or it's not fully canvas that you're hauling around. That's like super heavy. So you kind of, with what you guys do, you mix that where you can kind of get some of the same elements of comfort that you're getting at home. You have a pad, you have sheets. It feels familiar, but you're also, I think you guys are probably some of the lightest bedrolls out there as well, right?
They are, yeah, for sure. I mean, the bedroll, you kind of mentioned earlier, like an established piece. And what's interesting about it is it's established within the hunt community.
Yeah.
It's not established within like the outdoor camping community as a whole. Bedrolls, if you look at the evolution of it, we always slept in bedrolls before, whether you're a sailor, a soldier or an adventurer. That's what you use. It's a canvas piece, some wool blankets, lay on the ground, go to sleep. And it wasn't until really 1950s, 60s, and then predominantly in the 70s when the sleeping bags really came about. And the bedroll just got set aside because now I've got this new, system I can sleep in. And so within the hunt community, it's very, very familiar. One of the challenges we have as a company is that categorization issue. And like Bass Pro is going to be carrying us pretty soon, and they're going to carry us in the air mattress section, which it's not.
Yeah.
It's a bedroll. It's not a sleeping bag. It's a bedroll. And so, our approach on it was, if you really look at breakdown, and I think that study you mentioned is interesting, it's very true, but if you really kind of break down the physiology of how you sleep, inside or outside, it starts with, something comfortable. So you have to have a nice, comfortable space, but you have to have a high R value, good, nice insulation underneath you. And so what we do is we use the Thermarest Mondo King, which has an R7 rating, which is a very, very warm pad, so there's no convection, there's no heat, cold air come up underneath you. And since you're not losing any of that heat, the next thing you do is just add layers on top of it. In a sleeping bag, half your sleeping bag is wasted because it's compressed.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have that insulation value. The down captures the air, and that's what your body generates the heat. You capture the air, and so that's how all that process works. The other thing that we've done with our approach is really focus on breathability and keeping the body dry. A dry body is a warm body, and if you have whether it's like if you've worked out in a rain jacket or something like that, and you capture all that body heat, you're miserable. You get that really clammy feeling. And so what we've done is really kind of focused on the breathability and using our material choices have allowed that breathability to happen. And so every night your body generates about a pint's worth of moisture, and it has to go someplace. And if you're inside a canvas bedroll, what happens is all that moisture gets captured. It doesn't have a place to escape. Canvas is a great material for what it does, which is to really protect you from the elements and provide a barrier between you and the outdoor elements. Canvas tents, are awesome. A lot of these canvas bedrolls that are designed to truly be a bivy sack are great for what they do. Our approach on it is I want a breathable top layer that's breathable, allows that moisture to escape, because I can always build a shelter around me. But what I can't do is I can't make canvas breathable. Right, and so that's kind of just a design approach on how we do it. And by using the Thermarest pads, nice good quality air mattress pads, and lighter materials, our average bedroll weighs in about 17, 18 pounds. For that gets you kitted down to about 0 degrees. The other thing we did was we were able to, we have a snap system so you can layer it all in. Again, looking at the way you sleep at home, you get cold, what do? You add an extra layer. So we've got synthetic blankets, a light down. We have a wool blanket we came out with, and we're coming out with a heavy blanket this in the fall as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I will say the few times I've slept on them, I've been on a cot, and that combo right there is unbelievable. Like, I've had some of the best sleep that I've ever had in my life in a Born Outdoors bedroll and a cot. And I think part of it is most of the time I'm using something like that. I'm car camping. It's in the summer. And this particular trip, we had a ton of condensation in our tent. But the bedrolls, you could definitely, it gets hot, no matter, you could be at 10,000 feet in the summer. And you're still probably going to be hot if you have like I think some of your bedrolls are like 20 to 30 degree ratings, right? Yep. I'm a hot sleeper. And the second you get clammy, that sleep is not a thing. The second you get hot, the second that there's no breathability, that's when your sleep goes downhill. And it's like we always talk about on this podcast, especially if you're on a longer trip, a 5-day trip, sleep is essential to be able to enjoy that trip for the rest of the remainder. If you're 4 or 5 days in not sleeping well, especially if you're hunting and you're putting out a lot of calories, or mountain biking or skiing or something like that, you're screwed. So that combo, especially like we have the courthouse, we'll set that up, cots inside, bedroll. It's luxury for. I think the other thing too that you guys have is your bedrolls pack up pretty small compared to some of the other ones that I've seen. They roll up a little bit, especially because you have the inflatable, the Thermarests inside. So just that combo right there it's so clutch. It's funny.
When we do a lot of these expo shows and we're traveling around, we love to set up the pyramid tent in our booth. I've learned how to master setting up a pyramid tent on tarmac, on asphalt. It can be done, but it's always shocking how people what at the Overland Expo Advance or whatever, and all these big rigs and all this everything's over the top, and people walk by and they see the simple pyramid tent with a cot, your wood stove in there, and the bedroll on top of it, and they just literally stop and look at it.
Yeah,
and it's just that response, and it's like, this is all you really need.
Yeah,
and there's so much often, like in the overland space, or just and we're both gearheads. That's why that's what we do. But, it's really, I think the things that you guys are solving, the problem we solve is really the foundational issues of food, shelter, right? The very basic stuff that you have to deal with. Everything else beyond that is just nice.
Yeah.
I mean, powered refrigeration in the field is not necessary. It is very nice, but it is not necessary. Sleep is necessary. Shelter is necessary.
Yeah, and I would argue, I mean, so many people love the campers and all that, and they're great, right? Like, you're not going to be able to compete with a full mattress, AC, maybe a little TV with the satellite thing or the Starlink as a tent or a bedroll company, but you can say, hey, there are so many limitations to that camper because you're not going to be able to pull that into some areas, whereas we're obviously biased to our products, but our setup, the combo between the Born Outdoors and the Seek Outside is, I mean, it fits you can fit it in the back of a Toyota Camry, right? I mean, you can fit that whole thing right in the back of a Camry, and then you have all this other space for whatever. So it's almost like the next best thing.
That's what we're really trying to focus on as well. I mean, if you look at why so many people don't like going outside, it's the hassle, right? It's the hassle, like setting up the tents.
Mm-hmm.
Your tents pop up in literally a minute. I mean, they're simple, they work, but it's that anxiety of sleeping outside as well.
Yeah.
And that feeling we've all had where you've really, when you've been out there, we've all been there. If you push your body hard and you're like, okay, I got some hours, I'm going to get some sleep. And that anxiety and that dread that kind of comes over you that like, okay, this is going to be a long night. And you're just going to try to ride it out. You're going to try to get whatever sleep you can and to be able to kind of to work through that. It's that feeling that we all have. And the thing I love about the Bedroll is in my experience with, I'm biased to my product, but you lay in it, you just go to sleep.
Yeah.
We had a review that came in the other day of a guy who, he was kind of joking. He goes, for the first time in my life, I've had to set an alarm to go fishing.
That's a great review right there.
Yeah, because his first night he slept through the morning hatch, and so he had to set the alarm for the next morning so he didn't miss it.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, that says it all right there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Stuart, I mean, I feel like we've kind of covered what a bedroll is, but I am very interested. I'm always interested in military guys. You're ex-military, especially when they come over to the hunting, right? I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to compare hunting to military, but there are a lot of very similar aspects just in terms of like gear and being maybe a little bit more in a, like, obviously war is a much more dangerous situation usually than hunting, but there is that element of danger. And I think that you guys bring a very a nuanced perspective to gear. You all know exactly what you want. You know exactly what you need out of the gear that you're making in your case. But could you kind of explain that transition from the military to, and if that had any influence on this company here?
Oh, yeah, it absolutely did, without hesitation. I mean, kind of my background, I grew up in central Wyoming, Lander, Wyoming. And my dad had an outfitting business, and we take horses back in the mountains and did that as a kid. And for me, when I graduated from high school, it was either going to go to the University of Wyoming, which is a great school, or go in the military. And so I ended up getting into the military academy at West Point and went through that route, and then was on active duty for about 8 years and got into the Ranger School and did all those things. And what I, kind of making that, like your question about the comparisons, I think if you really, not the activity itself, but as an individual, what you're really doing is you're testing your internal mettle, right? Do I have what it takes to push myself into these environments, extreme environments, and survive, and to be able to maintain myself? And it's a mindset that I think is missing in so many spaces, and that's one of where I love to be able to get, like the guy I just mentioned, like get people out there to experience these things. Mm-hmm. And it's things that you take for second nature. The same with myself. My kids, they're all, my son was a mountain guide on Denali, and my daughter went to a semester abroad in Himalayas, and they've all done, all 3 kids have done like the Knowles courses and really try to get out there and experience those things. So I think that's the commonality there, is it's really an opportunity to go out and test your mettle to see, do I have what it takes to be able to do these things? And then the reward that comes with that when you're out there and embracing the suck, and it's miserable out there, and it's snowing, and you're cold, and you're like, I got this. And you ride it out. And I think that's the commonality between, with the hunt community and soldiers. The firearms is the firearms. Mm-hmm. But, that's the secondary part to it. I mean, I haven't hunted. Here's a quick war story you'll appreciate. So when I was a kid, my dad was student teaching was getting his master's degree in education from the University of Montana, and he met this guy who was working with the Montana National Guard. And he was buying ammunition off them, old Springfield 30-06 ammunition. And so when I was a kid, we had boxes of ammo cans full of 30-06 ammo. And this is military grade 30-06 ammo that they were. It was right during the transition to the NATO 7.62 and 5.56. The Springfield 30-06 was standard issue. And so we had ammo boxes full of tracer rounds, armor piercing rounds, and just regular rounds. Right, so when I had a much older brothers, we would shoot tracer rounds off the back deck and just at the night just watch these tracer rounds go down. Right,
yeah.
When I say this out loud, it's totally redneck shit, right? But it's what we did, and so we went out. So I was probably 14 or so, my first year, and I hunting day was Little Lander, Wyoming. There's no football practice because it's opening season. No one's going to be there to include the coaches, right?
Yeah.
So we went out. I went out with my dad. I find this deer, line up on this deer, and I shoot it. And I'm like, that was a decent shot, and I, crack off the round, and nothing. The deer just stood there. And I chamber another one, and I'm like lining up on it. All of a sudden, it just fell over. And what the heck was that?
Huh.
And we got to went up the round. We couldn't find the entry round. We couldn't find the exit round. And what it was armor piercing round.
Oh, no.
And we shot this deer with, and it went right through. Like boom, boom. It was such a clean shot. There was no splaying of the rounds, in and out that fast.
That's insane.
It's totally insane. It's like totally redneck shit. Yeah, so that's the commonality between those two things. But we finally chewed through that ammo, and our supply ended, so we don't have any more of it.
You're lucky that was a armor piercing, not a tracer round.
Not a tracer round, exactly. Yeah.
Walked up to that thing, and the back straps would already been freaking seared for you.
You gotta eat them right there.
Yeah. No, that's. I do think that is it. That's probably what it is. I mean, is just it's like testing your own metal. It's seeing, because I mean, I think that's the thing that a lot of people take from hunting that are like new to it, that like get into it when they're adults, is that it's not this like always fun. I mean, there's a mental aspect to it. Yeah. And again, not trying to like, obviously I have so much respect for veterans, and that's a whole different ballgame. But there is that mental aspect of just like, it's almost grueling. And kind of leading back to bedrolls. That's why it's so freaking important to have a cozy spot at the end of the night to where you're looking forward to going to bed rather than dreading it at the end of the night. Where if you can have it to where it's set up. Sorry. Hold on. Let me turn this AC off here. Oh no, that's just rain. Wow. It's coming down.
Yeah, we're getting pounded here too.
That's insane. Yeah. I thought that was like the AC that turned on for a second. I was like, I turned that off. I swear, it's just coming down. Yeah. Sorry about that, but yeah. Anyway, no, that's that. I like that comparison there. That's awesome.
But I think it's like when I was active duty, even I was an artillery guy, but I wanted to challenge myself, so I ended up going to U.S. Army Ranger School, and really kind of push myself through that again, just for the opportunity. Because I graduated college in '88, so I went to school in '89, and I always kind of joke, compared to guys who have been on active duty, since the early 2000s, right? They've lived a life and then some. Mm-hmm. I was a frat boy soldier. I went to Germany, had a great time. Was always ready to answer the call, but my number just never came up. Mm. And so I ended up getting out after about 6 years and 8 years. But that mindset of being able to have good quality gear that you can rely on, that when you're in these higher, more extreme conditions, that is not going to fail, right? Mm-hmm. Because it just has to work. And if it doesn't work, you have to be able to fix it in the field.
Yeah.
And that's another key component, even, with the bedroll. I mean, there's 3 straps on there because one's going to break, right? Mm-hmm. So you got 2 that still work. The top layers, I mean, you can still sleep on it. Even if the mattress goes flat, you can still use it.
Yeah.
So everything's still functional, if it all fails, it goes south. And so the way I built that, a lot of the design criteria was it's got to be rugged enough to be able to literally trash it. We've got one that we'd love to show. People drive on it all the time, and just abuse it. And we throw it out we threw it out the window doing about 60 miles an hour and watch it bounce. It didn't make for a good video because we couldn't capture it. But we did it, And so it's those types of things to really have a system that can really hold up the abuse. And it is a premium product. It is an expensive product. I fully acknowledge that. But it's also one of those products that you're going to buy once because the way it's built, the quality of the workmanship, it just doesn't fail.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the fun parts about it is that, it's an investment in your sleep, an investment in yourself, so you can go out and enjoy those things that you want to do.
Yeah. So for the gear nerds, would you mind just kind of breaking down, because there's multiple pieces to your bedroll, right? You have the outer layer, which is kind of more custom to you guys, and then you have different models with different pads and quilts and sheets in there. Would you kind of just break down like the different layers, what materials you use, what different options you have?
Yeah, for sure. So when you think about a bedroll, it's literally like thinking about your bed at home. How do you have that set up, right? And so what's unique to the bedroll is the outer shell, which is we call the Badger bed shell. And that has a 610D PVC coated ripstop material on the base of it. That prevents moisture from coming up underneath it. So you can sleep directly on the ground. Cowboy camp it directly on the ground. We also have a footprint that you can put down as well to put this on top of that snaps onto the bedroll. Just to give you a little bit of additional protection. It also makes it a little bit nicer when you roll it up, so you're not pulling up all the pine needles and all that kind of stuff if you're sleeping directly on the ground. So that's that base layer, and it's waterproof, so you're not getting any moisture from underneath it. On the sidewalls of the bedroll, we have about a 4-inch. It's a 4-inch high, and that kind of gives you a bathtub design. That helps keep the dirt from coming in it. And people often ask me, is it waterproof? And I joke that if you need this to be waterproof, you're not sleeping, and because you chose a really bad place to put your bedroll, and that's not really my problem to solve. But when you start to, when you start designing things, you add in like waterproof, that just changes all you have got to seam seal everything. It's a lot more expensive. And so the sides to the side, we don't have any seam sealing it, so it's not a waterproof system. And then that's the outer shell. Inside you've got some organization things for headlamps and keys and those types of things. The mattress goes in next, and the mattress we work with is the Thermarest Mondo King. It's a good 4-inch wide pad, 4-inch high pad, so it's super comfortable. It has a really high R value, and that R value is what's important. The higher the R value, the warmer the pad. The warmer the pad, the more comfortable you're going to sleep. It's kind of, we're a pad neutral company. So you can use, if you've already got an X-Pad, you've already invested in like a nice quality X-Pad or a Big Agnes or whatever, Nemo pad. There's a bunch of really good quality pad companies out there. They'll all fit inside there. And so if you've already got a pad at home, you can throw that in there. Then after that, we've got a sheet system. We've got two types of sheets. We've got a flannel sheet for cooler temperatures, and we have a new bamboo sheet that we have out for warmer temperatures. And after that, you've got you can already set in your quilts. As I mentioned before, we've got a synthetic quilt, a light down quilt, a wool blanket, and then we'll come up with a heavy down quilt as well. And the quilts all have snaps on the sides so you can layer them up, and they all move as one. On the base of the sheets and the quilts, you have a loop system that kind of keeps it from tucking in at the base, and it keeps it from pulling up on you. And so it's like tucking your bed in at home. And then the top layer is just a two-way. It has a two-way stretch material. It's about a 210 weight. So a lot lighter. It's really quiet, and so if you're tossing and turning to be a side sleeper, you're not going to be waking up anybody, and you're not going to wake yourself up. And that's that top layer. And then it all kind of rolls up, do it. And when it's all rolled up, it's about 34 inches. We have two sides. We have a 25-inch wide pad and a 30-inch wide pad, sleeping mattress pad, and they all roll up to about maybe about 14 inches in diameter and about 34 and 35 inches wide. And then we have a duffel bag that can all fit in as well, and put all your extra stuff in as well.
Yeah. I love how you guys do the metal, bachelor buckles, or do you use gatekeepers? Yeah, we call them bachelor buckles. It just seems like everything was kind of like what you were saying, it thought out to be, double fail safes, right? Or that being said, I mean, sleeping pads, it seems like you are kind of you probably know more about sleeping systems than most getting into this. Sleeping pads, it seems like over the years, they all will eventually end up with a hole in there.
Yep.
Do you have any tips or anything just in terms of maintenance with your sleep system to kind of keep that to a minimum? Or
I will knock on wood and say I've never had a pop pad, which are good. We have over 1,000 in the field. We've never had a pop pad. And part of it has to do with a couple of things on just the maintenance of a good mattress. When you have that 610D material underneath it, you're not going to pop it from below, and that's usually where the punctures come, is from below. And so it's like literally sleeping on something that just, it's I'm not going to say bulletproof, we're talking about hunting stuff here, so it's not. But it's just really heavy duty. You're not going to puncture it. You have to be very intentional to get through that material. And then a couple of keys on just on mattresses to think about. One is if it's like a down blanket. You don't want to compress a down blanket or a down sleeping bag, because that you break down the fibers on that. Same's true with mattresses. You want to try to store a mattress actually inflated, and allow the air to escape. There's nothing wrong with rolling them, keeping them rolled, but foam has a memory, and so the foam inside it, if it stays compressed, it'll stay compressed. And so if you leave it like in putting it underneath your bed or in a closet and allow that to expand out, you can do that. The big one too is not blowing into it. If you blow into them, into any mattress, you're putting moisture inside there. That moisture will break down the foam inside and even cause get some bacteria in there as well. It's best to use a pump sack if you have one. Like the Thermarests have a pump sack they can use, or a small air pump that you can use. Like what we do is we just have a cheap Thermarest, or a cheap air pump we got from Walmart that I use to just blow it up. I've used vehicle pumps. It's a bigger piece, so it's 4 inches by 30 inches by 80 inches, so it's a lot of air.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't never thought about that with blowing into them, because I always do that. But I'm gonna have to get something to inflate it that is not my mouth. But especially when you're at high altitude, that's always interesting.
But the key thing is getting air in there. If that's all you got, then that's what you use.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate it, Stuart. I appreciate you jumping on, and like I said, I mean, we love your stuff. I very much encourage everybody to get on the website there. Where can people find you? What's the best way to place an order?
Yeah, you just go to bornoutdoor.com. That's BORN outdoor.com. And you can find us there, and you reach out to any of the contact us, social media, it all comes to me directly. And so be happy to answer any questions you guys have, or talk bedrolls, and make sure you know what you're looking at, and go from there.
Cool. Thanks a bunch, Stuart.
I appreciate it.
All right. Welcome to the Seek Outside podcast, the interview version here. We are here with Kendrick Chittick, out of the, you got to be careful with that one. But yeah, Kendrick is from the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance here. He's based out of Ohio, but I'm sure you do work all over North America, doing the Lord's work, keeping those furry white critters alive and about. So Kendrick, why don't you give yourself a quick introduction there?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you having me. Yes, I am in the hotbed of mountain goats in Cleveland, Ohio. No, I'm kidding. There are no introductions planned for this part of the country, obviously. But I do travel for work, and I actually first got into mountain goats sort of in your neck of the woods in Colorado. I hiked up to do some fishing on an alpine lake, actually, and caught no fish. But I did see this beautiful goat, as the sun was rising behind the lake, and it was really cool. I thought it was a Yeti at first. I was just kind of in that state of mind, but it was cool. Yeah. So I always thought goats were awesome, and I was doing some other work in conservation for about 10 years, and was fortunate enough to hook up with this group. So based out of Cleveland, but we'll go to different places depending on what the goats need.
Yeah. So that lake doesn't have any fish, it sounds like. Goat tags are hard to get here. I'm just curious what lake that was.
I don't remember exactly. I think we were staying in Breckenridge, perhaps.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so, I don't know, it was a couple hour hike to get up there.
like Blue Lake, maybe.
Could have been. I couldn't tell you the name of it, but
Okay, yeah,
I've got the image in my mind anyway.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I've seen way more goats fishing than I have just never been on a goat hunt, but I'm sure I would see less goats on a goat count than I would fishing. Just something about them.
Yeah, well, that's funny. That's like around here it's the same thing. During hunting season, you see the deer in the suburbs, and then you drive an hour out and you see nothing. So anyway, not uncommon.
For sure. Well, Kendrick, I want to start with this. So today is Thursday, May 22nd, when we're recording this. The news just came. I'm seeing the articles on Instagram and stuff like that. Obviously there was a lot of talk about some of these public land sales, the ones specifically in Nevada and Utah. And they just got struck from the amendment, the budget bill. So they are not going to be sold off, at least for now. I think it's a huge win. Obviously, Utah, Nevada, probably not huge goat country, but what does this mean for the future of goats? I mean, are you guys taking this as much of a victory as a lot of the conservation world?
Yeah, I think it's great news. I think the key aspect that we're sort of pulling from that is that our community has a wonderful impact, and that's all of us. Hunters, anglers, hikers, bikers, whatever it is that are using these places. I think sometimes we have a tendency to get down on sort of our elected officials at times, and whether or not that's deserved is another discussion. But I think what's important is that when we do have a voice together, we can make those changes, and we can say, hey, did you guys think about this, or why were you not thinking about this? And so I think in some sense that's a positive to take from this, even though it was unfortunate we had to sort of rally so much to do it. We're always going to have to do that. So we can't just sit on our hands and expect that everything is going to be fine. So it was cool to see the community sort of come around on that one. And there are some goats. There's some small populations. Actually, we're in talks to try and do counts in, or at least to help facilitate a count in Nevada. And then Utah, I don't know. I forget the range. I want to say it's the rubies maybe. But anyway, there are some goats there too.
Rubies are in Nevada there. So that was probably where you're looking at. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I could see that being basically the only place in Nevada where they have them, because it's you don't think of Nevada as goat country, but yeah. I mean, honestly, I was pretty bummed because to see that, because my favorite thing to do is just sit at home and watch TV. So I was pretty bummed when I saw this news. No, I'm kidding. No, it was awesome to see, and I'm glad that I think it showed that politics, as much as we hate our system, right, it did work in this instance, and it has worked for a lot of these hunting and public lands issues where people get together. And I think Instagram and Facebook, as much as we hate it nowadays, it is so huge for getting this, because somebody posts something, an article about how this public land could be sold, and then there's 1,700 comments saying, hey, don't sell our public land, and it makes it easier for everybody to voice those opinions instead of having to write a letter in. So yeah, no, it was great to see, and I'm happy, because I think it's just an overall victory for all wildlife and all public lands and hunters and anglers, backpackers, hikers, whatever. Well, cool. So getting on to goats, right? Mountain goats are, I guess, I don't know too much about them. I know that, in some places in Colorado, the numbers are up. It seems like they are not hit as much, their populations aren't fluctuating as much as bighorn sheep in some of these areas. Is that correct? Give us a status on just goats in general.
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's sort of a few things to keep in mind about goats. One of them, and one of the reasons that we exist, frankly, is that there's a data gap when you compare the knowledge and information we have about mountain goats when you compare that to other species like elk or wild sheep. And credit to those communities and those organizations that have put so much effort over the years into bringing the awareness and scientific background to those species. we're hoping to do that with mountain goats. So one of the things we're doing in the background now as part of that is we're doing a meta study that is sort of taking in information from all the different regions where mountain goats are so that we can answer that question. The last time it was done, to my understanding, is maybe around 2009. So those are some of the figures that we have. So that gives you an idea of how badly we need an update. A lot of times the mountain goats the sort of subpopulations is where we see these changes. So for example, in a couple of our counts in Washington and South Dakota, the goat numbers were down. And so does that mean that they're down overall? It could. Does that mean the count was not great? It could also mean that. So the point I'm trying to make is that when answering these questions, we just need more information about these animals. And part of that is being addressed through these goat counts. And we're doing several this summer. So we have them in Montana, Washington. I mentioned we're going to try and do one in Nevada. And then there was another one, South Dakota as well. And so this is a way that we can work with local biologists to help them get more information than they otherwise wouldn't be able to get. Counting mountain goats is challenging because they are in such challenging locations. It's more difficult. It's not like elk where they come down in the winter and you can see the herd, right? It's a little more challenging, and counting them, if you want to use helicopters, is necessary but not ideal. The goats don't always love that, and helicopters are very expensive. So anyway, the big issue now is trying to get a bunch of this data and see what we can come up with.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because, and I was going to ask that, is it, the famous saying out there is that goat country starts where sheep country ends, right? And from our conversations beforehand, it did sound like a lot of these counts that you guys do are via foot, right? Like instead of planes or helicopters. But I would think that like a big white animal like that, you could almost go over with like planes, be a little bit higher up, so that you're not spooking them too much. Is there a reason why are goats a little bit more spooky to these helicopters than other species?
It's a good question. On the plane, I would imagine that someone has counted or mentioned that there are goats via plane. I don't know that we've formalized counts with them. I've only worked on the helicopter ones.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, you were asking about, how they impacted by helicopters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, if you imagine there are documented cases of golden eagles preying on kids. So the goats are sort of tuned into things being above them, right? Or the potential for predators being above them. Okay. So that's kind of, that's out there. And then, the other thing is just the helicopters are loud and intrusive, and they're something different. And we've seen that the mountain goat patterns will change after certain helicopter routes and things. And this is actually not just an issue in the goat counts, but it's also an issue with something like heli skiing, for example. We have a board member who does a lot of heli ski guiding, and so he's really clued in on sort of how often they run these things and where they need to run them, and those sort of logistics are over my head. But that's another example of how we need to think about how we approach the mountains when the goats are there.
Yeah. So mountain goats were native mostly Pacific Northwest, Montana. Like I know that they weren't like native here in Colorado. What states as of right now are we'll just say the lower 48 are doing the best, just population wise, health wise?
Yeah, you got it. So the native versus non-native thing, I mean, we have some native herds that we know of down into Idaho, and of course Montana. And then when you start to get south of there, that's where it's safer to say that they've been introduced. So, we were just talking about those in Utah, Nevada, Colorado, South Dakota. And then, of course, there are other places in their native range, per se, where they were introduced, even though those states might also have native populations. So there's a bit of a spread. And to give you an idea of the numbers, and I'm pulling up this last sort of a big review people did. British Columbia is the biggest, right? Mm-hmm. So there's tens of thousands of goats there. Alaska is number 2. So those are the 2 big goat sort of homes. And then you have a lot of places that have, a couple thousand, several thousand. So Idaho, Montana, Washington, that's sort of your next group that have a bunch of goats.
Okay. So that's kind of where they're doing the best. That makes sense too, because I've read there's a book called Great American Hunting Stories, and there's a guy, forget his name, Owens, but he wrote the Virginian. But he had a big he went up to basically southern British Columbia, maybe northern Washington, up in like the early 1900s, and he just explained, they did work on goats, but there were so many of them. They were inaccessible. It was such a mission to get up to them. But, back then it seemed like their populations were fine. Did mountain goats, do you know if mountain goats suffered as much as like some of the other species that declined in the early 1900s due to market hunting, or were they, because they're so inaccessible, did they not maybe suffer as much?
I don't know the specific answer. I mean, my guess would be not as much as other species because of the inaccessibility. But I don't know that for sure. I'd have to look at that.
Okay. So your goat counts so it kind of sounds like this is almost like a nationwide goat count that you guys have been embarking on. Has this been like a multi-year process? It sounds like the last one that you guys got into was early 2000s. Is that kind of how you do goat counts, like nationwide, do all the states, or are there little ones every year?
Yeah. So the distinction is that there's two things sort of happening. One is that meta study so we actually have a board of directors like any other nonprofit. And then we also have a group called our Science and Conservation Committee. And this is essentially a third-party group that advises us on how we give out conservation grants, and then also advises on, like right now, I have what I call my quick fact sheet up for podcasts. So when someone asks questions, I can refer to actual scientists to give the answers. And so that sort of meta study is more about gathering information from wildlife agencies throughout mountain goat ranges. So that would be from BC, from Montana, from all over the place. The goat counts help feed into that, but they're sort of a separate thing, and they're really how the organization got started about 10 years ago. And so the goat counts we host every year, and really we just need a biologist that is interested in doing it, the volunteers, and then we get a sponsor to help us out, and then we get people out there. And you're right, we actually offer different sort of difficulty levels on some of those goat counts, so that you can go out for just a day, or if you want to do an overnight, you can do an overnight. And then, that information then filters up into the biologists. And we've actually worked with them to develop sort of standard operating procedures that other biologists can use, because, when you're gathering data for science, there's a particularly rigorous way to go about it where the data is more reliable. And so we worked with them to come up with a process that is the most reliable that we could do with citizens that are actually doing the counts.
Nice.
Yeah.
So have you, I guess, Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance, do you guys, I feel like I remember seeing that you guys auction off like a governor's tag or like one of the once in a lifetime tags for Colorado. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So we've been doing that for a few years now, and we auction that off at Sheep Show. So that's been really cool to watch that grow and to see people get so involved in it. There's this sort of I feel like Colorado has this really unique aspect to it because, on one hand, the world record goat is from British Columbia, and a lot of people would say that if you're going to try and get your biggest goat, then you should go there. But, we were just talking about the sort of mystique of mountain goats in Colorado and being that high and at that altitude, and it's just perfect for them.
Yeah.
I really think that tag is a cool thing because you're essentially in this ideal goat habitat and going after them. And so, yeah, we're happy to have that partnership.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Colorado is also unique because I know like one of the I don't know if they allocate the most tags there, but it's near. Why am I forgetting the peak that you can drive up, the 14er that you can drive up to here? But basically, it's what I'm trying to get at is Colorado is unique because there are lots of places where you can drive up to, 12, 13,000 feet. These passes that you can essentially drive up to goat country. And I mean, like Pikes Peak, and I don't know why I'm forgetting the name of the peak that I've been to, but you can take a tram up there, take a trolley, and some of these areas they have hunting. So you can basically get up to like 14, or 13.5 and hike down, which is probably a very unique experience for goat hunting. I'm assuming most of the time you have to hike up. But what state is kind of getting back to the governor's tags there? What state aside from Alaska and obviously British Columbia are people applying to because it's like the best chance of killing a goat and killing a big one?
Yeah, it's a good question. I couldn't tell you the odds of what the best opportunity is. Certainly because Alaska has so many goats, I would imagine that there's a more opportunity there. We actually just reached out to people that were registering to do goat hunts there to try and introduce ourselves to them and perhaps help with an educational aspect, which is another thing maybe we should cover. So I'm the wrong guy to answer that. You might have to chat with our friends over at Go Hunt to where your exact odds are. But I do know a lot of people will go up to Alaska to do their hunts with an outfitter there. And BC, obviously, if you're a resident, you're spoiled in a good way.
Yeah. What about like in the lower 48? Is there a spot? Is it like Colorado that's kind of known for big goats, or is there?
Other than the distinction between BC being the place for the biggest ones, I'm not sure if there's a difference between Colorado or Montana, for example.
Okay. Well, so that can kind of lead into the educational aspect, right? Because I mean that's if you are a hunter and you're drawing a goat tag, right? Colorado's interesting because I know that you can get like a nanny tag, and I don't know how many other states you can get that, and it takes typically a lot less time to draw that. Is kind of the idea, but I'm sure there's lots of states where it's like billies only, right? And that is kind of one of the things that hunters think about is distinguishing the difference between billies and nannies. You had mentioned education. What do you guys? What do you? What are kind of some of your main initiatives when you talk about educating goat hunters?
Yeah. So the key behind the education aspect is that when you take a nanny, you're going to impact the herd in a larger way in terms of population numbers than you will if you take a billy. So it's just a simple 3-generation graphic that we share where, if a nanny's having a kid or 2 each year, then over time, that's X amount of goats more on the mountain than would have been. Now, of course, there are places where nanny hunts are totally legal. And I know there's some, certainly in Alaska, I think on Kodiak has some of those where they would like you to take some to help with the population numbers, which is part of hunting, right? So our hope is that whatever situation you're in, that you can make the decision that this is a billy and this is a nanny. So we do some videos that we have on our YouTube channel. And then we've also partnered with different wildlife agencies for people that do get goat tags to go through courses to help identify those. Because when you're in the field, you get excited or the weather's hard or the terrain changes. And so it's good to just have all the tools at hand to be able to make the decision to say, okay, I have my choice. I'm going to take this billy, or, hey, I have a nanny tag, or this is a place where I can take nannies. And then you can focus on those. So our goal is just to make sure that you have the ability to tell the difference.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I would assume that's a that's a pretty important part. So what, just for people, if they want the shortcut, obviously go to the YouTube to get the full distinction. But could you just give us, a quick description on the differences there between a billy and a nanny? Like if you're out hunting, what are you looking for?
No doubt. So if you see a mountain goat with something that looks like a kid, like a younger goat, it's probably a female, right? The males are going to be a little more solitary. Another thing to look at would be the horns. So on a female mountain goat, they get a little thinner and they sort of hook at the end of it, where the males are a little thicker and they have a very sort of gradual, even sweep about them. They sort of sweep back in a way that it doesn't look as hooked as a female would. Another good way to sort of judge that, not 100%, but a good way is to see, okay, are these horns wider than the eye? So because the horns and the eyes are black, you might be able to tell in your optics, and that can give you another clue. Mm-hmm. And then, the other way, and that's a good way to tell, is how they pee. The female mountain goats are going to pee like a female dog would. They're going to squat down like that, and the males are going to pee like a quarter horse. They kind of lean forward. Really? Another one to look out for usually during hunting season, during the rut later in the year, is that the males will sort of be working these beds and get very dirty on their flanks. So on their back legs, they'll have these sort of darker spots. You may have seen them when you've been out, but that's another indicator that it's more likely to be a billy. There's a few ways.
Yeah, when is kind of their rut, if you will? What month?
Yeah, so when I was on, so I've been on one goat hunt. I was photographing it, and that was in early November. So I don't know what the exact dates are for the goats on their rut, but I would say it has to be around that time because they definitely had those dark hind legs and stuff. So maybe let's say, for the sake of this conversation, let's say like late October, early November. But that might vary, so don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just like every species varies a little bit, but yeah. Yeah, cool, man. Well, so what do you guys have coming in the future? I mean, how can people help out with some of these goat counts?
Yeah, so we actually just posted on our social. So the Instagram is @Goat Alliance, and then we also sent out an email about this. So now is the time to register for goat counts. We send that out first to our members just so that they have sort of a first stab at being able to sign up and get out there. But then once we post it publicly, obviously, then everyone can sign up. So we have those counts coming up, Montana, Washington. So go ahead and get signed up for them and see if you can join us. We'd love to have you. Cool.
You got to be a pretty solid level of fitness to be joining in on these. Like, explain one of these goat counts, like how it kind of works. Are you hiking in? What are you doing there? Yeah. So usually there's a sort of a training session the night before. We'll grab some pizza and then talk with the biologist, and we'll just say, hey, this is how the goat count works. This is where your route will be, and then they'll talk over which area you're going to view and how far in you want to go. So you can pick, in most cases, you can sort of pick your difficulty level. And then some others, Glacier National Park is a much smaller count. There's only about 6 or so people that go each year. And usually that one's sort of filled up by the members pretty quickly. And so each count is a little different and a little more or less accessible depending on where we are. Okay, cool. Sweet, man. What about other stuff? What else can people do to get involved to kind of help you guys and your mission? Yeah, thanks for asking. So the best way to get to know us is to become a member. So we have an annual membership. Then we also have monthly supporting and sustaining memberships if you want to do sort of a monthly subscription model, and of course a life membership too. And then that way you get access to all our newsletters and everything. So then you can hear about all the counts quickly. We also host some really cool webinars. So we bring these scientists on to report on their studies and to share with us how that might impact conservation issues. And then we also do a big goat hunt webinar as well. And as I mentioned, I've done a good amount of hunting out west, but very little goat hunting myself. And so that is the place if you want to know about what to look for to find a big goat, what gear to take, places to look for them, the type of habitats. That's the best thing to watch. And it's usually our best attended webinar as well. So those are a few places that you can kind of get involved with us and learn a bit more about goats. And hopefully if you have questions too about a hunt or anything, shoot them our way and I'll find the right person that can help you. Cool. One more thing before we get out of here. Don't want to take up too much more of your time here, but you've been on one goat hunt, which is infinitely more than me. But I was, this is a kind of more of a gear podcast. We obviously cover the conservation stuff, but I do want to just ask you, some of your key pieces of gear that you took on that hunt. Anything that you do differently gear wise? Like what kind of? Maybe we'll start here. What boots were you running, and were they good, or would you never take those again?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the context was that I was photographing a hunt in British Columbia. It was coastal British Columbia. So basically it was wet the entire time. And a few things that stuck out. So I was wearing Loa Tibet boots, which have been my hunting boots for years. You find a good pair and you stick with them. They were fine on the first location. I think the second location that we went to, I wanted something that was a little stiffer, that would be a little better platform in those steep sections. So that would be one thing that I would suggest. I would go a step up from your sort of standard elk or deer mountain hunting boot and get something that's a little more mountaineering friendly. And the goat hunters that were there, they were all running, mountaineering boots essentially on that.
Yeah. So and then, just real quick, what do you mean platform?
I mean so I'm imagining the stiffness of the boot, if you're thinking when you're hiking on very steep terrain, essentially your boot becomes the platform that you're standing on.
The leverage. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that way you can get that toe or that heel in, and it's just a little more solid, under your feet. So
I gotcha.
That'd be one recommendation.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about like how, you see some of those mountaineering boots and they have like the sole that's like 2 inches thick. I wasn't sure if that's what you meant or just, a stiffer boot makes sense for sure.
Yeah. And you don't need the Mount Everest thing, I don't suspect, but I would go one step up from sort of what we're normally used to. And then the other thing that was really important, I think, on that hunt was running synthetics. So my sleeping bag and my insulation, I ran synthetics on those. And that was huge because several days you're getting into your bag or you're getting to camp and you're totally soaked, right? You're basically soaked. And there's nothing you can really do. You have good rain gear, but at the end of the day, you're just going to be wet. And so I wasn't worried about being warm. I knew that I could just crawl into those and that I could sort of cook my base layers dry overnight. And come out refreshed. So I think in that environment, having the synthetic stuff was that was a big win. I'd definitely recommend doing that.
Yeah, those BC ones are interesting because it seems like did you do the classic where you basically park your boat on a beach and hike up through thick stuff until you get up above tree line?
Yeah. And in one location we did that, and we actually couldn't get up to the goats. We couldn't find a way to get up to them, even though we saw them up there. So we had to back out. And then, the second location, we were able to get up high enough to get to them. They like to follow the snow line down the mountain. So it just worked out at the second location that snow finally hit up top. And, we could meet them right at that line, and we're able to find some goats. So that was good. And, when you're hunting in rain for a few days, being dry is unlikely, but great. But snow is almost better to be in than that cold. That 40-degree rain is brutal. So it was actually nice to have a little snow.
Nice. How many miles were you guys doing every day?
Man, that's was a good
question. And was it? I don't know. So a couple things, because I'm not a heights guy. Not a heights guy at all.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I'm 6'2". I'm a little bit farther from the ground, but than I was when I was a kid. But that's always the thing that is kind of scary to me and intimidating about doing a goat hunt. Obviously, I'm putting in for points here in Colorado, but I just think of like, all right, so two things. It seems like one of the most physically challenging hunts out there is just a goat hunt in general. But then to top it off, you're having to do some sketchy stuff to get to some of these areas. So maybe like from that perspective, how was it physically? Was it as physically challenging as you thought? Was it more physically challenging? Was it less?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'm used to, doing elk hunts and stuff out west. So the physicality of it for me was fine. Like I can put my head down and hike all day with the weight. I just get it done. But I am also a flatlander from Cleveland. So there was a time where I had to take a moment and get myself together about being in those steep environments. And fortunately, I was with a group of guys that were just, rock solid. They're awesome. And it was good to have them with me. And, you get through it and then you go on. You just move on. It's just part of hunting and part of life. So it's certainly, a step up from the elk hunt that you're going to do out west in most cases, right? We did, when we were coming down at the second spot, we did have to get an ice axe out. So we had, the ice axe in one and the trekking pole in the other hand. And, it wasn't really a situation where the crampons would have been helpful, but there's certainly that extra level of awareness and care taken on these hunts. And I would say that number one, don't get yourself in too deep, but number two, don't be fearful of it in the sense that, we can all do a lot more than we think we can. And, weirdly enough, now having come down off of that, all the elk stuff seems way easier, and I want to go goat hunting again.
Yeah.
So you sort of we develop and grow along our edges. And so, if you're not comfortable doing something, you don't need to do it, right? You don't have to go to that particular location. And it's good to communicate with your team what you're thinking and feeling, but you also don't want to stay in the same place all the time. So everyone kind of has that edge that we need to explore and push through at different times. And, when you're with a solid crew, that's a good time to do it. If you're by yourself and you're trying to push your limits, then I don't know. For me, I take less risks when I'm alone than, when I'm with a group. So
for sure.
Yeah, a few things to think about.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, there's something about like I can do steep when there's trees and I don't know, there's just something about being super exposed in rocks, right? And even like steep, just like grass stuff, bear hunting in Idaho, some of that stuff is gnarly straight up and down, but it's grass. So you're like, oh, if I fell, I'd just roll down, I'd be all right. But it's like you add the rock factor. That's the one thing. I mean, it's just something that I'm always curious about, because you do hear you do like, I don't know, you watch these TV shows or YouTube videos, and it doesn't look, the camera never does any of that stuff justice, right?
No,
like just how steep it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you hear people talk about it, and it seems like the opposite of what the camera was portraying. So I'm always trying to ask people how it actually is, so that's good info. So, did you guys kill a goat?
Yeah. So so there were several people that had tags on this hunt. So they got two.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sweet. So just real quick, for anybody that might be going on a goat hunt here soon, what was the pack out like? How was cleaning it? Like, does it differ at all from elk and deer?
Yeah, so my experience with pack outs has been primarily with the elk. So, we're throwing whole quarters in and burger meat in a bag, and, we're doing essentially 4 laps unless we're taking a head out at the end. With the goats, they were breaking that down, doing all, taking all the bones out, right? So they're getting all the meat down into just the meat bags. And then they did take the cape as well. It was a pretty cool goat, so they took that. So that was, that wasn't something that I've had to do before, but it was cool to watch them break that down. And then we just split the meat, between ourselves as we went down.
Okay. What's like a goat fully boned out, like total meat, just estimate?
Oh, man, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll figure that out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wonder like what a solo, goat weight is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. How much does a standard billy goat weigh? Like
I'm writing that down too. It's on my. I'm gonna add that question too.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, sweet, man.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, before we dive off, I wanted to ask you too. In those, one of the challenges on that goat hunt was, one location there was a pretty good camp spot that we, could get all our tents in and everything. It was no big deal. But on the other one, we sort of had to find one, right? You didn't know exactly where you were going to stay. And so we were kind of digging out spots to put in these tents. And so I was wondering from your perspective, what are some tents from Seek that have a little narrower footprint, maybe, that would be better in places that are a little steeper where you can, kind of get something in behind the big root bed of a tree or something like that. Yeah. Any models that you think are more along those lines?
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of ours are bigger footprints, and I've definitely heard that before. Now, I will say, can't divulge too much, but we do have one coming out here soon that is going to be kind of prime for that. And just in terms of a much smaller footprint. But yeah, I mean, even our Silex, our one person, it's pretty big. It's like 9x9, big square. So they can be tough up there, like the whole floorless and trekking pole style shelters. But that being said, we do have one coming out that was honestly kind of designed around this certain situation. So you'll have to stay tuned, and people will have to stay tuned here.
Yeah, no, that's great info. And it's funny, we were thinking too, we're like, wow, and one of our spots, we were like, man, we might be able to get a hot tent here. And, we were making fires every night to just dry stuff out. Right. And I don't know how common that is, but if I think it'd be great to have one. But yeah, to your point, there's strengths and weaknesses of all different shelters, right? So you just got to weigh it as you go in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I think, there's some spots here. I think Colorado, a lot of our terrain is, especially where there's mountain goats, it's big open meadows and down below these avalanche chutes and boulder fields and stuff like that. I mean, those you can always pitch a tent, right? But yeah, if you're looking to just pitch up on a little knob, even like some of the half dome tents you have, I mean, I almost wonder if just like a tarp, just throwing a tarp up there is the best way to do it, because then you don't have to worry about the footprint and trying to get everything good on solid ground. You just find a little goat bed or a sheep bed and lay down in that. So
I think you might be able to swing it if you're in the timber, but I think as soon as you get exposed, you're going to want something beefier. Ryan, actually, I don't know if there's a video portion of this, but my head just swooped from side to side. I don't know if you noticed that, but a fox just ran by my office window with a big old squirrel in his mouth. Nice. And just continued on his way. It was pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah. That's a great office there. Got a good spot.
Nice view here. Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. I'm trying to think of anything else that sort of stood out from my experiences there, but I think those are the main things, get the stiffer boots, run synthetics, and just sort of be ready to be wet, maybe that's another thing. Take 2 sets of gloves that you just hike with and just rotate them. One's wet, the other one's dry, one's wet, the other one's dry. And then when it gets cold enough to run your mittens or whatever, then you can whip those out later. But anything to help stay a little drier because you're going to be wet.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure even if you're not in like a super wet area, just bringing like an extra pair of socks that stays in the sleeping bag that are not sweaty, Yeah. I do that basically all the time. Anyway, I just keep a pair of, they don't even have to be wool. Like I'll just bring some black socks, put them in the sleeping bag so that you at least have something dry to get into when you get back to camp there. But no
doubt. I'm going for more than a night. I'm taking an extra pair of socks just because, those wet socks, that's what can get you going on blisters earlier on and stuff. So I don't want to mess with that. That'll ruin a hunt.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I would assume that blisters are probably just like a foregone conclusion when you're goat hunting, right? Did you come back with a bunch of blisters, or did your boots do all right to where you didn't have any?
Because these boots, again, I wish they'd have been stiffer, but because I've been wearing them for so many years, my feet are just great in them, and they've been great boots for me. They've handled everything else. And what I do now is, as soon as I feel, I don't let them get to blisters anymore unless it's like some crazy pack out. As soon as I feel a hot spot, I put some tenacious tape over there and then I just run that the whole time,
Yeah.
So I sort of wait like about halfway or 3/4 through that first day when I'm really, because you can simulate hiking. I mean, here in Cleveland, I've got a couple trails that have a little bit of slope. So, but you just can't you can't copy what it is to be in the mountains and the different places you're going. So I just throw some tape on it right away, and then I just leave it on until it rubs off in another day or two, and put it back on.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for jumping on here. Definitely some good topics, and hopefully people can get involved with goats. I mean, they're really a cool animal. That just, I mean, they're almost they're not like ghosts or anything like that. Like, not that they just like appear or disappear, but they're just so special because you only see them in these super gnarly places, and you'll just see one walk. I mean, I might have actually been at the same lake that you're talking about outside of Breckenridge,
Cool.
and I've seen a bunch of goats up there, but you'll just be camping up there, and they'll just be at the very tip top of the mountain, and you're like, I'm not getting up there. There's no way.
No, and look, that's the other thing too. When you're hunting them, you got to make sure that even though you might be able to get a shot, that you can still retrieve the goat, because you might have great footing and confidence, all the way up to where that goat is. But if he falls the other side, how are you going to get him? Another angle to the hunt, no pun intended.
Yep. Well, cool, man. Well, did you have anything else to cover before you go? Any shout outs or anything like that? You want to lead people to the website or Instagram?
Yeah, no, that's great. Instagram again is at Goat Alliance, and we have some awesome both board and regional folks that send us goat photos, and so it's a really cool follow. And then our website is the same, just goatalliance.org. So you can head there and learn more about the memberships and different ways to donate and things like that. You can also reach out to me directly at sponsorship@goatalliance.org, and I can help you out. And if I don't have the answer, I'll find the right person that does for you. So drop us a note. We'd love to have you involved. We think the goats are pretty cool and special, and there's really nothing like them. Their closest relative is a musk ox.
Really?
So
Wow.
So that shows you how sort of special they are and unique they are in the world. We love them, and we're grateful for you guys having us on, and everything you do for hunting and conservation.
Of course, man. Yep. Thanks a bunch.
Awesome. See you, Ryan.